Good morning. Today I will be talking about low range, fundamental low range, like how I developed my low range, how I got all my trigger notes, all my pedal tones, all of that to speak properly, the exercises I used, the articulation exercises I use for that register, and just general exercises I use every day to get my low range speaking. But before that, I'd like to say that I feel like as bass trombone players and tenor trombone players, we get taught the low range wrong, or at least we kind of think of the low range in the wrong way. I feel like a lot of teachers, in I like at least in my experience, have taught that the low range, like the double trigger range and the trigger range, is a lot more tubing because obviously you have the whole F slide, and it is a lot of tubing. But I feel like it's just taught like, oh, it's gonna be really resistant and it's going to be really hard to like focus that range. And I feel like subconsciously that causes us to overthink the low range, and it's kind of like a lot of people just end up doing a weird embouchure shift, doing just weird things to get the low range to work. I feel like out of 99% of bass trombone players that don't have lesson teachers, they learn the bass trombone register, the low register, wrong. And I feel like a lot of people view the bass trombone as kind of like, oh, mini tuba or something like that. But I mean, as James Markey said, there's not really a big difference in like the diameter, like the sizes of the slide, the bell, etc., on the bass trombone compared to the tenor trombone. So it's really like you just have to think of it as just a tenor trombone with an extra valve. At least for the most part, that's how I think of it. Obviously, sound is different. There's a lot of things that are different, but I feel like the idea that the bass trombone is a completely different instrument and that low range is just completely different than anything is I just don't agree with that. I mean, just I've never really agreed with that, but I feel like recently I've gotten into more of an idea like that low range is just notes. There's nothing special about them. They're just there and you just practice them every day. Before I begin, I'd like to say that I have a G tuning for my second valve. So my first position double trigger is E flat, second D, etc. So for most of my bass trombonists that would watch this video, probably have a G flat, and so they have a D in first instead of E flat. So just take that into consideration. Some of my slide positions will be different than yours. So first things first, how did I develop those notes? How did I get them to speak? Well, really, all I used was a mute and a mirror. The mirror is significant. So put the mute in, start. Let's say you have a low F, right? Low F as loud as you can. I'm not going to do that for the sake of the mic, but just as loud as you can in a practice room or just wherever you can practice with a mute. Just start on low F, or just even if you don't have low F, just start on V flat. And you just work your way down as loud as you can. Just why it's important to have a mirror is because you want to make sure you're not shifting weird, you're not doing anything weird with your lips. You want to keep the movement as minimal as possible. From here, just trying to minimize that movement. Obviously, there is going to be some movement because that register is different and it is new for most of us, at least at some point in our life. So you are going to need to work on it with a mirror, just making sure you don't really change anything. You like, or at least trying to minimize it. I feel like a lot of people get caught up in the idea that you change minimally, like you don't change at all. Like everyone shifts. There's not many trombone players that I know that don't shift at all. Like they feel like every great trombone player has some sort of shift, and if they don't, then I mean, maybe they're just one of those anomalies. But that's really how I started off, just with a mute, loud as you can. Making sure as you get lower, It gets harder to control because there's a mute in and there's more tubing, etc. But you want to make sure you're still able to play that low D, low E flat, low D flat, low C, low B natural, like just as loud as the F. And then, as soon as you get comfortable with that, I mean, just practice it as much as you can. I would recommend practicing it every day for 15 minutes a day or more if you can have the time. As soon as you have all that register as loud as possible, then you just do the complete opposite. Mute in, but piano. Yeah, even I need to work on that a bit more. But for that, it's instead of helping you get the notes out and using the right proper air for that register, it's helping you minimize and focus the air and use the proper amount of air you need just for like any dynamic range, because obviously you're not going to be playing low C's at double forte all the time. So that's really the first exercise I would do when developing my low range, and that's really the main thing that I did. The second thing I did before I had gotten a bass trombone and I was still on tenor in middle school, I'd get my band director told me get a metronome. I just put it slow. I like 70. You just do just arpeggios going down, starting on B flat. I'll do the rest of that exercise for you all, but just reiterate some things. You want to make sure your tongue is going up, down, and then staying here, because I feel like you just have, because your jaw is more open, you know, your tongue, you might have to experiment with tongue placement. Maybe instead of hitting between the lips, or sorry, between the skin of your mouth and the teeth, you may have to hit just the teeth or maybe below that. I know some trombone players tongue here, some trombone players even tongue the bottom. I've never seen that personally, but I've heard. And then maybe like you just need to experiment whatever sounds best, and obviously it's going to change as you develop as a player, but just take it slowly. It's a long process, but that's how I work on the articulation of the low register. Just slow arpeggios going down, continuing with A. Obviously, when you get to A flat, you have that low C and trigger seventh. I like to tune my first valve to F. So then you're in the predicament, oh, I don't really have a B natural. Do I lip it down, or do I just skip that and then go to G flat, which doesn't have the B natural? I was taught, no, you don't do that. You just pull your F slide all the way out. Oh, not that much. You just pull it out till it's as far as it can go, and you go to G. Obviously, that note's not really going to be there as much as the other notes because it's just weird, you know. You're just extending your valve to be essentially an E pull, and some valves are shorter than others, and you know, but if you can do that and you have the B natural there, just do it. Just work on it, and you just continue downwards. you're just clearly emphasizing, just making sure that you have big emphasis at the front and the end and the center of your note. Just making sure all of your notes sound the same consistently all the way through. You just have to make sure it all sounds the same, all that, the same core, same resonance, everything. Because I personally learned the low range wrong, and I just like was just trying to get the low range, and I was ending up articulating weird. I was doing a weird armature shift. It took me a long time to undo that because that's the main register I play, and it was just terrible. So that's just how I developed my low range. That's just very basic exercises I did every day for as long as I needed to till I got that low range. So now I'm going to talk about tone, how I developed tone. Tone in the low range is really weird because, some people like more core, some people might like more warmth, and my personal recommendation is just find bass trombonists or tenor trombonists that you listen to, that you really like their low range, and find what you really like about it, whether it's their warmth, their color, the depth of the sound, whatever it may be. Find what you like about their sound and just try to copy that. My personal favorite sound is Brian Hecht and James Markey. I just really like the way they sound in that register. It's just, to me, it's like the best. So, really, all I did to develop that was just some basic long tones. You could add the pedal there at the end, but I would only add the pedal if you feel like you're not really shifting that much, because if you shift a lot here, then I feel like personally you're just not getting the best sound if you're shifting that much. Because if you really think about it, the B natural here, it's only a half step away. So I was taught that really you really shouldn't have many shift there. Obviously, everyone's different. So whatever sounds good and is easiest for you, do that. But for me, it's just minimally shifting. Then we start on pedal B flat if you have it. If not, just move on to A. Then after that, I'd either move on to A or I add the lip slur in. It's really important to do it with a single trigger and with double triggers because, you just need to get used to both feelings and try to make this sound the same. And if you feel really ambitious, you can use your second trigger and go up to fifth or sixth, wherever that D may land. Then you go to A. As you can see, I'm taking a lot of breaths. I don't really need the breaths, but I like to do a lot more breaths when I'm doing those long tones because I just want to get the best sound possible, and sometimes that just requires more air for me. Sometimes it requires less air. It really just depends on the day. So if you don't feel like you have a good breath support, that's something you need to work on that I've previously made a video on. There's lots of great videos about air and how you work on that. But that's something that's very important. You make sure you're breathing from your diaphragm, no tension. When you breathe, it's just, and you just work on putting air through the horn, getting the best sound possible. So that's that. Then we have shifting. Like, what if you don't? Like, what if you can't really get used to it? Like, you're still having a lot of shifting in the pedal register, whatever the case may be. So the first thing I would do is scales, obviously. The reason I go three notes at a time and then start at the second note I just played because I just try to aim for the best resonance on note to note and just building your way up to that building block to the octave and then the octave above is really important. So yeah, that's just a scale that you can do. I would really recommend finding whatever note you sound best on in the low register. For me, it's pedal B flat. That's why I like to stick around there. Some of you may just have a really good low F, maybe D, whatever the case may be. Whatever the case may be for that, you just want to build off of that. So for my pedal B flat, you just want to just build and try to transfer the way that note sounds, whatever note that may be for you, into all the extremes, all the way to high B flat, which I won't do. I don't feel like I can do it right now, but, and then just making sure the resonance and everything you like about whatever note that may be, you transfer it. And for shifting, if scales don't really work, sometimes they don't work. A big exercise I've been doing recently is pull out tuning slides, even on bass trombone, pulling out the tuning slides, and playing pedal B flat in trigger 7th. For me, I don't know where it falls on G flat tuning anymore, but just playing that note. Trying to make the double trigger B pedal B flat sound just as resonant and just as full as this one. Obviously, you're never going to use that note, but it's really important that you work on that in context. And if you're just a tenor trombonist that just has a B natural or maybe just a C, I would recommend just working down as slow as possible, because you just need to work on that shift. Some days you might just need to focus on some days you may just need to do that with a mirror, no air. Sorry, I meant no tongue. No tongue, no articulation, nothing, just playing the notes, trying to get the center of that. And those are the biggest things I really did to really improve my low range, and it took a long time. And there's obviously advanced things you can do if you're an advanced player. Like you could do arbins down the octave, rochus down the octave, lip slurs, your everyday lip slurs just down the octave. But adjusting to that accordingly. Rochus down the octave in tenor clef. Just anything you can think of. Get creative. Whatever you feel like you have the most fun in. I feel like that's a good way to develop the low range, because the low range is a little painful to work on. Not really physically painful, but mentally, because it's draining, especially if you've already learned it wrong. You have to relearn it. It's just a long process with everything on the trombone, but it's just really important that you just work on that accordingly. Just to close off, I would like to mention that it's important that you do look at a tuner from time to time, because those trigger positions do fall. in different places than your normal, like E flat. My E flat falls around here, and D. So just take that into consideration. Don't just go off the normal positions, and overall just have fun practicing. Hope this video helps. Thanks for watching.